So first, let me kind of introduce you to who we got on here. I'm Bonnie Aleshire, for those of you that don't know me. I've been with the firm about 15 years. We also have Sharon Snaringer, who has been with us, what, about 5-6 years now?
Yeah.
And also Mandy Walls, who has been with us and is now back with us, coming at us from North Carolina. So all three of us provide QuickBooks support and to both in-house staff as well as to clients out of the Chambersburg office and then some. So just wanted to introduce you. If you ever call in for support or need help with QuickBooks, you'll probably get one of us, at least if you call into the Chambersburg office. Okay, I got someone else coming in. So just to let you, that way you can put a face with a name. So I welcome everybody. I hopefully will go over some information that you'll find helpful. This is the second user group via webinar for online that we've done, or via Zoom. Maybe at some point we'll be able to start meeting in person again once we get past all this COVID stuff. So, and life returns to somewhat what we know is normal. So, all right, so we're going to dive right in. I'm going to get back to my dashboard within QuickBooks. We're going to go over a bunch of stuff. I'm probably going to jump around a little bit on what I had originally set up the more I looked at that. So I want to kind of touch on navigation first. Everyone here is at a different level of using QuickBooks. So I thought it was helpful just to kind of touch on just the overall navigation and where things are and moving around. With QuickBooks Online, probably one of the biggest perks, one of the bigger perks, is the fact that you always have the latest and greatest. Unlike desktop, you don't have to update every year or every couple years. But with that being said, it can also be a little bit of a downfall when you go in to look for something and it's been moved.
That never happens.
So if you've been using QuickBooks Online for any amount of time, you obviously know that things can change in the middle of the night. And when you go to it the next day, it's not where it was, or it looks a little different. Very early on with QuickBooks Online, that was definitely an issue. It's not as bad now, but they do make changes periodically, especially as it relates to payroll. So just understand that you always have the latest and greatest, but on the flip side of that, you always have the latest and greatest. So you have to be a little prepared to adapt to changes. So just going over the dashboard, I mean, you have this dashboard, but a lot of people don't realize they've got this little other link up here that gives you the business overview and kind of gives you some visuals of where your account is. You've got your bank accounts over here to the right, and know that you can edit what you see here. You can move them around, you can move them up or down. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you can edit which accounts show up, but primarily it's bank accounts, checking, savings, credit cards, petty cash will show up there. You also have, just gives you a quick view of where you are at with things, invoices, expenses, profit and loss. So that visual is nice. If you go to banking, which we're going to spend a good amount of time on, it'll take you into the online banking. You can also get there just by clicking on the checking account. It's going to take you to the same place. So you're in here. If I go back to the dashboard and I click banking here, it's going to take me to the exact same spot. So a couple different ways to get to the same thing. Your sales are going to be your customers, invoices, links for payments. your product and service list you can get to here. So what you're selling and invoicing for. You can also get to that up here underneath the gear icon under list. Under your expenses, you've got your vendors, as well as being able to record transactions in under here. Checks, expenses, like expenses being credit card. We're going to kind of dive into that a little bit here shortly. Projects, if you're doing any type of job costing. That's why it says something's not quite right. I apologize. It's a little difficult. I'll give you a little bit of a warning. It's difficult when you're working in QuickBooks Online trying to train on this because we don't have, because it's a sample file, we don't have all the features or everything's turned on. So you can only get so far in some processes. So just be aware of that. But under payroll, you have employees, contractors, workers' comp. Be aware that under contractors, you can go in here, you can pay a contractor under expenses, like go in and write a check. But it's as easy to come in here under employees, under payroll, and pay both your employees and your contractors. You do have the ability to pay contractors via direct deposit within QuickBooks Online as well. So be aware of that. That is a nice feature. And I believe, yeah, you can create expense, create a bill, but you can pay via direct deposit. We have time tracking here for employees. You can give employees access just to enter time. You've got report. Taxes is going to be if you're set up for sales taxes or payroll taxes, those would come up here. And as you can see, we don't have sales tax turned on. It's not one of those things we can do here. You can track mileage. I think this comes in from the app. Mandy or Sharon, have you, either one of you worked with that?
No, I have not.
I have not yet, but I do have a client that is using it, so I'm going to be learning about it.
So it's, if I'm not mistaken, I think I have one client that uses it as well. You download the QuickBooks Online app to your phone, and it allows you to track your mileage. That being said, there are a lot of features that you, and we have many clients that are using the app on their phone. There are advantages to that. When you have contractors or people that are in the field a lot of times and want to generate, HVAC is a good example. They want to generate an invoice or a quote right out in the field. You can do that on the QuickBooks Online app on your phone. It's both for Apple and Android. So there are some features. One of the other features we're going to talk about in a little bit is the ability to take a picture of a receipt, and that can be put and attached to your expense transaction, expense transaction right in QuickBooks. So be aware that there are advantages to the app. Now, also keep in mind that it doesn't give you all the features that you have on your laptop. So there are some things you cannot see or cannot do on your phone app that you can do directly in the online on your computer. So just be aware of that, but there are advantages to having that app. Accounting, this just takes you to your chart of accounts, like this peek under the hood, and the ability, it's like a shortcut to being able to reconcile as well. It takes you to the reconciliation screen. The My Accountant. So you can invite up to 2 accountants through QuickBooks Online within your file that does not cost you anything. So if you have one accountant that does bookkeeping and another that does an audit, and you have 2 different accounting firms, you have 2 different people that you want to link up, you can do that. So what we were talking about, Sharon, Mandy, and I, that what we were talking about earlier was being able to share documents. And that's one of those things that is in this accountant center. that you can upload documents, bank statements, copies of invoices, that sort of thing, right into QuickBooks. And that is available. You can share that with your accountant that you have connected up. That is a super nice feature. At the end of the year or even through the year, we tend to ask for a lot of documentation, and having that uploaded into your QuickBooks Online file saves you a lot of time. It saves us some time. It keeps us from having to ask you for information, but it's in one central location. We have had the opportunity to work with that this past tax season. Actually, I think for the first time for me, and it was great. I mean, it is absolutely fantastic to be able to have those documents quick at hand. So just keep that in mind. The live bookkeeping, QuickBooks is selling bookkeeping, services. So if I'm not mistaken, that's what this has to do. If they have live bookkeepers on staff that you can work with to do the bookkeeping for you. So that's what this area is related to. All right, so we talked about everything coming down here on the side. Let's talk about this new button up here. This is just your way to get to recording transactions, whether it's invoices, receiving payments, credit memos, expenses, bills, checks, credit card transactions, getting direct to payroll. So it's just quick links to different areas within your file. Also for journal entries and the bank deposit, which we are definitely going to talk about here shortly. The other thing I wanted to mention here is the transfer function. We have a lot of people, and it can be confusing on the best way to record a transfer from one bank account to another. So it's so easy to go out to the bank and online and do a transfer from one account to another, but you need to make sure you're getting that recorded in QuickBooks. Depending on how your accounts are set up, that can cause some confusion within QuickBooks itself. And my recommendation is to come into this transfer and tell it what you've done. I want to take X number of dollars from my checking account, and it's so simple. And transfer to this account. Sorry. Transfer to this account. You can put a memo in here as to what it was for, the amount over here, and it will automatically adjust your balances. Once you hit save and new, you can also make it a recurring transfer, but hit save and new or save and close. So it's just a super easy way to keep things up to date in your file. Let's talk about this gear icon over here. This is a way to get to the various kind of the inner workings of your QuickBooks file. So it's a way to get to your chart of accounts, which is your account. Well, chart of accounts is here. Manage users, that's where you're going to set up your users. I know one thing someone asked earlier today was if you were able to assign different rights to different employees. So we can look at that real quick. Now, remember I said earlier that you can invite your accountant, and you can do that over here, but you can also do it right here as well. Kind of takes you to the same place. So if we do users, and we're going to add one, and we'll show you some of the different features. So you've got your standard user, which can give them full or limited access without admin privileges. The administrator, that is the person that's going to be able to set up users, delete users, and perform all administrative functions. It'll allow you to change passwords, send money, and it specifically states not everyone should be the admin. You also have Remember when I mentioned earlier, you have the ability to let employees enter their time. So you have employees, it does not count towards your user limit. So I think with QuickBooks Plus or Essentials, you have 3 users. One gives you 3 users, one gives you 5 users. These do not count. A reports only user or a time tracking only user does not count towards your users. So reports only would be someone that you want to come in and just be able to look at reports, not record any transactions. Perhaps if you're doing a reporting to a council member, someone like that, or a board, you can do so just with the reports only. Time tracking would be for employees that you can allow to enter their time. All right, so we're going to do a standard user, and I cannot find my next button. Okay. Can you see it? Mandy?
Nope.
I don't see it. Maybe it's not going to let me go any further.
Because it's a sample file.
Yeah, it's not going to let me go any further. So you see what you've got. It does. Yeah, it's not going to let me go in any further. So once you get in, once you select a standard user, it's going to take you through a variety of screens. You can give them access to this and not that, and it'll take you through a variety. I think accounts receivable, payroll, vendors. So it gives you a couple different options to choose from. So know that you have the ability to do that. And sorry, I could not take you in further. All right. So we talked about setting up new users and account and access. I wanted to mention, and I said something earlier about taking pictures with your phone of receipts. And again, it has to be done on the app, or you have the ability, and let's go out of here. Let's go out of here and go to banking. So I was talking about the receipts earlier, and that's in your banking center up at the top. Now, it won't let you do it over here. You have the option to set up email where you have to set up an email, but it allows you to take pictures of receipts, send it to QuickBooks, and they kind of store it for you, and you can attach them to your documents in QuickBooks. You also can upload from your computer. You can take a picture with your phone, with the mobile app on your phone, and using the mobile app, snap a picture of the receipt, and it comes right into this center here, this receipt center. And then you will be able to review the receipt and then attach it to a document within QuickBooks. It's pretty slick how it works. I wish we could go through this a little further. That's, again, the problem with the online. So you have the receipt forwarding, which comes through an email that you set up with QuickBooks. If you come up to the help and type in how to set up receipt capture, it'll give you walk you right through the process. So it's pretty straightforward. I have several clients using that, and it works really well. That sets in here kind of like the banking center. It'll set in for review until you have actually gone in and addressed each one. So when you pull a receipt in, when you take a picture and it comes in through your mobile app, it sits here until you come in and deal with it. You can select the category, and it'll have an action here for what you want to do with it. The other thing that Sharon—
Hey, Bonnie, it looks like somebody has a question. Tatiana.
Hi, yes, thank you. Bonnie, can you explain, and I'm sure this is a dumb question for most people, but no question is a dumb question. Why do I need a receipt if the transaction is captured in my bank account statement? Isn't that redundant?
If it's captured in your bank statement?
Yeah. I mean, if I pay $5 for something, it shows on my bank account. Why do I need the $5 receipt?
Okay. So I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. So pretend I was the IRS. Their first question would be, if they were doing an audit, would be probably, is that a business transaction? Prove to me or show me that it's a business related transaction. So typically what you want, and Mandy, you can chime in on this too if you want, but typically for any business transaction, you want to have support, documentation to support that that's a business transaction. So having that receipt, having it recorded in QuickBooks is one thing. Having it come through on the bank statement is another. That receipt gives you the detail. Another good example would be, depending on the type of business that you're in, you may be subject to use tax for products that you consume in the state of Pennsylvania, even as a business. So if you buy office supplies online, okay, and they get shipped to you from another state, and you get the delivery and you use them in the consumption of your business activity, you're using that up. But if you purchased it online and you weren't charged sales tax, you're actually liable for use tax to the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania likes to do use tax audits, which means they're going to have you go back and do a 3-year audit of your books, or they'll come in and do it for you, a 3-year audit of your books, for which you have to provide documentation as to what you have or have not paid sales tax on.
Yes.
Yeah. Does that help?
It does. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Probably more than you wanted to know. I've had the chance to set in on use tax audits. And I'm amazed at how many people really do not have documentation for their business transactions. And it's a big area of scrutiny right now, especially with the online shopping. There's a lot of income being missed for the states. So doing these use tax audits is a way for them to get a lot of revenue. So yeah, with any business transaction, you should have a receipt of some sort of support for that transaction. And unfortunately, the bank statement does not provide that, nor does the credit card statement. If you buy it on a credit card, there's just not that information there. But that is a good question, and I'm glad you asked it, actually. So definitely not a dumb question. All right, so we talked about receipt capture. One of the other things, Sharon, you said that you can attach, we're going to go to Reconcile, get started, maybe later. You said you can attach the bank statement right in here now?
Yeah, my one client is doing it. Now, I don't exactly know how to do it because I haven't done it now.
I bet you when you get done.
If you're like in the history, you know how well, because we don't have anything there.
Right.
It'll list, you'll have when you reconcile, but you can have that your bank statements right there too. And I think especially when you can, like now, I think you can download bank statements a lot of times. So you download it right into your QuickBooks
file. Yeah, I had someone
here with your
yeah.
leave.
I had someone else use that, and it was really nice that it was right there.
Yeah.
So, okay. It's just some of those features. This is a lot of new stuff too. I mean, this is recent additions to QuickBooks Online. So they're really stepping up their game. Unfortunately, we don't always hear about all these nice little features and updates that they have. I wanted to talk about the difference between expenses. So we're going to go over here to expense. The difference between an expense, a check, and a bill. So you can come in here and record, of course, expenses. And that expense transaction, you'll notice a lot of these are credit card expenses. And this is the place that you would want to go up. I'm trying to think at the same time. And you can select the payee and select what account. So you can select your Visa or MasterCard. The reason to do this, so there's a couple different ways, and we talked about this with the desktop too. There's a couple different ways to deal with your credit card in QuickBooks. You have the ability to set your credit card up as a credit card. So let me show you that. And this is the other option that you have. Yes, I want to leave without saving. So if we go to chart of accounts, you will notice, let's see, I'm pretty sure, yeah, they've got 2 credit cards set up here. The one, all these accounts with the little arrows means they're connected to QuickBooks, they're connected to online, which means the transactions are downloading back and forth. So if you see that, that's what that is. So this one is connected, this one is not. When you set up, you notice the type is actually a credit card. If you set your credit card up like that, it gives you the ability to reconcile your credit card to your statement when you receive it, which is a nice feature. It also allows you to go in and record credit card expenses in through your expense transactions. Just like I was showing you, go into expense. I'm going to select, and the nice feature about this is, typically, if you were to simply get your credit card statement and record a bill or a check to pay that, and that's a little old school, but that's how a lot of the people in QuickBooks Desktop do it. So you would record each transaction or group all your expenses together on your credit card statement and pay it either as a bill or by check. This way, it allows you to select the payee. So now that you have credit card transactions, you can search back to who you purchased something from, not just going to the vendor, the credit card vendor. So instead of being able to simply go to card member services and look at how much you paid them, you'll be able to see by vendor, regardless that it was paid on the credit card, but by vendor, what you purchased from them. So that information on a vendor basis is very helpful. If you have to go back and look at records and, back and look at your records for transactions or where you purchased something, that's going to provide you a lot of helpful information.
Bonnie?
Yeah.
One other thing, down at the bottom of that expense, it says attachments.
Yep.
There you could keep your receipt.
Yes.
Credit card transactions, because that's another thing that they like to check out if you get audited.
Yes. It is nice when you've purchased a piece of equipment, and I've used this a couple of times this past tax season. If you purchase a piece of equipment, you can click this, attach a file here that you have saved, and anybody can see that it's there because it connects it up in here to this document. So having that receipt or that invoice for a piece of equipment or an asset that you've purchased for the business, having that right in the file is just super useful. Or just for credit card expenses, something you've purchased from Amazon, which is oh so popular. So thanks, Sharon. That good. Thanks for mentioning that. All right. So receipt capture we talked about. We talked about entering expenses. Now, something else I wanted to mention. So what if you have to do a check? Yeah, we're going to close this. So you can go in through expense and you could put your check number right here. The difference is if you go into check, it actually says check number. Not a lot of difference. It shows up in the same place when you're running down through the list, but you have the check number here. So just so you know that, I mean, from a reconciling perspective, if you put checking account in both of them, they're going to still show up in your check register. The only difference is one's going to have a reference number and one's going to have a check number.
Mhm.
Okay. We talked about the credit card reconciliation. Credit card setup. And I did mention that you can reconcile that just like you do your bank account.
Bonnie, question.
Uh-huh.
So there's not much difference between expense and check, but if you enter a check as an expense, can you mark that to be printed later? Like the checks, you can mark those to be printed later to print a batch at a time.
You're probably right, but
No.
You can't. So
a good point.
that would be a difference if you want to just print a batch of checks.
Unless it's handwritten checks, which is what I've
Correct.
seen a lot with online because of all the online payments.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're wanting to print checks, you do need to go in through check entry. Good point. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. So I'm saving the banking for last because that's where we're going to end up stuck for a long time. That's a big area. I did talk, I think I mentioned the journal entries up here. We talked about navigation. One of the things that I wanted to mention, I didn't have on my list, but I do want to mention it, is memorize transactions. I think, and that was seemed like to get a lot of attention in the desktop group earlier. So you have the ability to take an invoice and memorize it so that you can use that repeatedly. It is a little different in QuickBooks Online. It is called recurring transactions rather than memorized transaction. These are great to use, and they actually have some here, and good examples, by the way. So they're memorized or recurring transactions are great if you have something that is coming out of your bank account on a regular basis, or you want to enter a bill on a regular basis. You have a monthly bill. They have telephone bill here. It's a perfect example. It's going to enter that bill for you automatically each month, or you can come in here and tell it to post it. Also the building lease, entering that bill each month, and you can come here and click duplicate, and that'll post it. So it's a little different in the online edition. You can delete these. You can always update the transaction if the amount changed. You at least have the posting there. So let's say the telephone bill changed from 1 month to the next for some unusual reason. You can always go in and edit the transactions once you've posted them. That's the beauty of QuickBooks. I mean, you can always update transactions. Let me see. You can do, I'm going to show you how to do one. Let's go into expenses. We're going to go into a check. So you'll notice at the bottom down here, if I was to fill in this check, at the bottom is make recurring. Can you see that? Or do you see that little thing popping up? Okay.
Down there.
It says make recurring. And it tells you to name it, comes up at the top, create the name for the template. How often do you want it? Do you want a reminder? Do you want it scheduled or unscheduled? Unscheduled is going to set it in the recurring transaction list for you to go in and push it when you want to post it. The reminder, it's going to come up and give you a reminder about it. And scheduled, I think, means that it will automatically post the transaction for you. You can also tell it to create the transaction however many days in advance. Some people like to do that for cash flow purposes, to know what they're going to have coming out of their register. All right. You can also memorize an invoice. If you have regular invoicing, if you invoice somebody on a monthly basis or a group on a monthly basis, you can set them up to be invoiced. All right. There we go. Create invoice. And you're going to notice you have the same thing at the bottom down here as well, to create or make a recurring. My name is Craig. I mean, Craig's Landscaping, I think is what it's called. Okay. So use the recurring transactions. It's a great time saver. If you have, you can do the same thing with journal entries, bills, checks, invoices. So definitely use that to your advantage. All right, let's dive into online banking. So there's a lot to talk about here in the banking center. And I wanted to spend some time here because this is probably the area that gives most clients or most users a headache later on down the road without even realizing it. So a couple things. First off, when you come in here, you've got the accounts that you've connected. Remember earlier I mentioned that when you're in the chart of accounts, the little arrows means that you have them linked up with online. If you get an asterisk here, not an asterisk, exclamation point, that means that something has happened in between QuickBooks and your bank account's website, and you need to go back in and relink the accounts. Now, if your bank does some sort of update, changes policies, has to have the password renewed every so often for security purposes, that link will break when that happens, and it will put an asterisk right here, which means you have to go back in and reset the link, put the new password in or whatever you have to do to relink the account so that transactions import. So the number here that you have, one, it'll tell you last time you were updated. Then it's going to give you, after an update, the number of transactions you have that need to be addressed. Those are the transactions that are sitting here that need to be reviewed. Okay. And they're going to give you, and well, here it shows you what the bank balance is and what is in QuickBooks. Ideally, you would want those to be in agreement. But I'll mention that having your banking transactions downloaded and having these two numbers agree does not remove the need to reconcile your bank statement, reconcile to the bank statement. And I have a lot of people that do this, and I understand that, you know, if you keep these two in match, you should be good, and you actually should, but you do still need to reconcile to the bank statement each month. So when you get that statement in or when you download it, take that, go to your reconcile up here and reconcile. Now, I will tell you, QuickBooks does you a favor, and I didn't like it when I first went into it, but when you go into reconcile an account that is connected up with the bank account website, with the bank website, and you have matched or accepted, categorized these transactions, when it pulls it in to your bank reconciliation screen, it is already automatically cleared. So it does a lot of the work for you. I have actually, now I struggled with this in the beginning, but now I actually go into accounts and they're already reconciled. They're already in agreement. I mean, I got a zero difference. All the transactions are cleared and it's like, okay, done. I mean, it's that quick and easy. There may be some things that don't match up, or there may be checks that haven't cleared. That is what's going to be unchecked, or that's what you should have that is unchecked. But the bank is clearing most of the transactions for you if you have this set up. So, and it does work well when it's set up right and when you follow the correct flows of documentation, which we are getting to. So, ideally, again, yes, you would like these to agree. So when you do an upload, what you need to do is come in and actually look at these transactions. Now you'll notice that a bunch of these say that they match. So what that means is QuickBooks has gone out and said, okay, well, you've got a deposit. We found a record in your books for the same amount. And I think it looks at 1 or 2 days before and 1 or 2 days after to see if it can match. And if it does, then it says, okay, we found a match for you. Do you want to match it up? When you do, QuickBooks doesn't duplicate that. It puts it together, kind of puts the two together, adds a little, kind of combines the documentation between the two transactions and makes one. Does not duplicate. Where I see a lot of problems with this process is for individuals or businesses that are using the invoicing feature in QuickBooks Online. And this is where it gets confusing. So if you come in and run an invoice in QuickBooks and you've got an invoice that you need, that you've gotten a payment on. Okay, so you've generated an invoice out to a customer and the customer's made a payment. Okay, let's say they sent you a check and you need to come in first. Before accepting the transaction through the online banking center, you need to come in and receive that payment against the invoice first. So that's going to keep your accounts receivable on track. So that's going to let QuickBooks know that you had the customers paid, and it's going to take it out of your accounts receivable. So if we're going to take this one, we're going to receive payment. Okay. And we are going to say that they paid by check. We're going to put the check number in. You're going to notice that this says deposit to undeposited funds. So let me explain the difference between posting this to the checking account and posting this to undeposited funds. So if you had this selected to post to the checking account, and let's say you got 10 checks in one day or 1 week, okay? Haven't taken them to the bank yet, but you are, you're applying the payments. If you post them to the checking account, then each one of those checks will post to the checking account as separate individual deposits, okay? With undeposited funds, it kind of sticks it in a holding tank. That's what undeposited funds is. Just, it's exactly what it says. It's funds that are not yet deposited in the bank. And until you're ready to take them to the bank, it sits there. And then when you're ready to take it to the bank, I'm going to show you what we're going to do. Okay, let's hit save and close. So we've posted the payment against that invoice. And now I'm ready to go to the bank for the week. I'm going to go to new, and I'm going to go up here to bank deposit. In here is going to be all the payments that you've received that you have posted to undeposited funds via some sort of payment method, whether check or cash, whatever the case may be, and you're ready to take it to the bank. Okay, so you check these, have the amount of the deposit, hit save and close. So what that does at that point in time is it takes it out of undeposited funds and posts it to your bank account. Now that deposit that you just recorded in QuickBooks agrees with what is going to be on your bank statement or what is going to come in from your online banking center. The two are going to agree, and then that's when you're going to get this match in your banking center, such as this. So if you would have posted them to the checking account individually, but still taken them to the bank on one deposit slip, then you've got 10 different or however many different individual deposits appearing on your bank statement, appearing in this online banking center that QuickBooks, well, I guess it's going to match it. It's not going to match it on the bank statement because you took them together to the bank on one deposit slip, but now you've got 10 or however many different individual deposits in QuickBooks. In the check register, rather. I hope that makes sense. So you've cleared the invoice, but you need to make sure that when you are receiving a payment against an invoice that you have created in QuickBooks, that you are going to, one, post them to undeposited funds, and then two, go to that bank deposit and post it through there to the checking account. You need to go in and clear it out that way. Then you'll be able to match these up. Now, what I've seen happen before is I've seen the deposits getting posted to the invoice and then posting to the checking account individually. I have seen them post to the invoice, or not even post to the invoice, but go to bank deposit and come down here and post it this way. And the problem with that procedure is, without posting it against the invoice, is your receivables is not going to be right. QuickBooks is going to see that you still owe the customer still owes you money. So you don't want to post it like that. So back to the banking center. Hopefully I made that clear. That is something I wanted to touch on. I've seen this numerous times, and it's confusing. It's confusing because it's not clear the proper flow of that process, and it can cause a lot of confusion, and it can also cause your income to be duplicated, and that's the big problem.
Bonnie, I'm going to jump in here and just ask a question because you may have answered my question, but I might need a more for dummies version of the answer.
Go ahead.
For example, in my QuickBooks, my bank account balance and what is in QuickBooks do not match in the remotest of terms. So what do I need to do to make that happen, and what could potentially be the biggest barriers to that happening? The for dummies version.
Version. Have you reconciled your check account to
It's mostly reconciled. There are like 70 some deposits that are not, but like this is over the course of 3 years that these numbers like don't match at all. So it can't just be the reconciled. You know what I'm saying?
So it sounds like, so if you've got stuff that's going back that far, that's unreconciled, then it's
I do not. That's the thing. I don't, like, for example, I've handed in my taxes for 2020. So the year of 2020 is totally reconciled. The year of 2019, same thing, because I did my taxes. But yet and still, there's like a dramatic difference between what is in my bank account versus what is in QuickBooks. So why would that be?
Probably have duplicated transactions that are old sitting in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. When you go into your bank reconciliation screen, is there a lot of uncleared stuff from prior years?
No.
Oh.
Like if I go to banking and I go to, like, it says that I have 77 transactions for review. And those are all from 2021 because I haven't really paid attention to 2021, but nothing prior to that. But like I said, the balance in my bank account is not what is the balance in QuickBooks.
So when I say you reconcile, I want to make sure that I'm not confusing you on that. Have you gone here and gone to the reconcile screen?
Hold on, let me get back to your screen so I can see what you're saying. One
Sorry.
moment. Where it can, okay, so accounting, reconcile, chart of accounts. I don't know. I'm going to say no, because when I add things in, I go to the banking tab under dashboard and do the for review there.
Yeah. So what you need to do, if you go up under the gear icon and go to reconcile, okay?
Okay.
And when you do that, all these little things coming up, select your account and you need your bank statement and go in here to your, if you've never done this, then you've probably got a lot of stuff that might be sitting out there. That's what I said. If you, do you have that you probably had old stuff from prior years that has not cleared, like it may be duplicated.
Okay.
So what you do is you go, and that's why I said when I started into this banking area that having those two amounts agree in that online banking center doesn't eliminate the need to go in and reconcile.
Okay.
So you put your ending balance in, and then you put your ending date in, and I
mean, should she just start with January of this year?
probably, but I have a feeling she's going to need some help with it. So this is the screen you would come up to. And remember when I was saying a little while ago that you'll have all these check marks. These things that have come in from your online banking will all appear like that. They'll all be cleared.
Okay.
But I suspect what you've got is some stuff that's old that is throwing your bank account balance off in QuickBooks.
Okay.
Okay. Like there's probably some old stuff, either checks that haven't cleared or maybe deposits that might be duplicated, depending on which way it's going. And that'll take a little bit to get that cleaned up. If you need help with that, call. We've gotten pretty good at this.
Lately, yes.
Because it's not just you. And this is why this is an area that I wanted to focus on today, because we've seen enough of this in the past year or so that, especially at the end of this tax season, that this is something that's really causing confusion for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I know if you're asking the question and I'm sitting here talking about it, trying to really beat it in, and I don't mean that in any way that other than just to really emphasize the importance of this process here, is because it's happening a lot. And you don't get a lot of clarification on it from QuickBooks. So.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. If you want help, you call us.
Will do.
Okay. So, and going back to this screen here, when I was mentioning earlier that, these transactions come up in blue, that means they've come in from online banking and you've accepted them. As an example, I don't know what the date is in the online banking center. Let's go back over here.
Bonnie, can I just add something about the invoicing?
Please.
Too, like if you are receiving, like I have clients that receive insurance payments for their work that they've done, and you still have to apply them as payments to the invoices, but you can put those right to your checking because that's how it comes in on your bank statement. Do you know what I mean? Like, or if you receive like a Visa or MasterCard payment, like those two things that you can put them right to your checking and you don't have to do the undeposited funds. I mean, it depends on if you're taking it to the bank yourself or if it's automatically going to hit your bank account.
Right.
So that's just an added thing.
This is just
different ways people are receiving payments for different things.
it takes a while to get the hang of this. I mean, it did me too.
Yeah.
And it is confusing until you understand the flow and the process and what it's actually doing, which is
Because I would assume then you would have matches for those things too.
exactly. So you're going to get like what you have here. The other thing I wanted to mention is QuickBooks, if you don't record the payment, this is one thing I can tell you, if you don't record the payment against the invoice, okay, and you just wait for it to come in from QuickBooks, and it doesn't show up as a match over here, but it's a deposit, and it doesn't come in as a match, then you just go ahead and click add. That is one, either going to put it to uncategorized income or post it where you tell it to post. But QuickBooks assigns, and remember, this thing has a good memory. So it will dump the last customer's name that you received a payment from in there under in the description field, I think is where it comes in. So it looks at the last person you got a payment from or that you posted a payment from, and that's what it'll put in here because that's what it recognizes. So it's best to follow that flow: invoice, receive payment, bank deposit, then match up in online banking. I'm gonna do a little flow chart on that. I remember when I struggled with this. So, all right, so if we come in here and match this stuff, now one of the things I wanted to mention is setting up rules, and rules are good. Rules can automate things for you. So let's say, see how this came in, uncategorized expense, Chen's Gas, okay? Came in through the online banking, but let's create a rule for this. Let's say that, and we know it doesn't go to uncategorized expense, but let's say it is auto expenses, automobile. Fuel. All right. And we can click this, create a rule down here. And what we can do is we can tell, what do you want to call this rule? Well, we're going to call it Chen's Gas. And the easiest way to do these rules is as transactions are coming in from the online banking. But you got to kind of think outside the box, because is every single transaction that comes in from Chen's Gas going to be fuel? Well, one would think so. But what if you go to Hicks Hardware? All of that might not be the same type of expense. Some of it may be repairs and maintenance on your office. Other might be job expenses, depending on your type of business. So you have to watch when you're creating rules and think about it. And even if you create the rule, you can always change it before adding the incoming transaction to your books. So we're going to do Chen's Gas. It's money going out of the checking account, or you can do all bank accounts. But for this one, we're going to do the checking. And what does it contain? It contains Chen's Gas in the description field. Okay. The type of transaction, then it's going to assign it as an expense to automobile fuel. No payee, no tags, and just save. So for now on, anything coming in from Chen's Gas is going to automatically be assigned to automobile fuel. It'll still come in here and it'll still wait for you to click add. Okay. Same with like this A rental, same thing. So you want to come in, you can absolutely.
Bonnie, back up. That you just set that up. Was that one marked to automatically apply it?
I was wondering. Hold
So
on.
go to the rules.
Yep. So that's how you get back to rules, is over here.
The button was at the bottom where it was
Yep. It was set
automatically apply.
Okay. So let's go back to edit this. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Down here, it'll automatically add that transaction. You can turn that off. With it on, Chen's gas transactions are automatically going to go. Thanks for catching that, Mandy. Is automatically going to go to automobile fuel. Okay. If you turn it, that's if it's on. If it's off, it'll go sit in the banking center until you add it manually. Add it.
I think by default, I would leave those turned off until you
Get
for
comfortable.
certain are comfortable with how
Yeah.
the process is working and QuickBooks is doing what it's supposed to, and then go back and turn those rules on, especially if you've got a mess in your reconciliation screen. Don't automatically apply those yet.
Yeah, that's a good point. So that's how you set up rules. Now these ones that come up as match, I mean, you see Hicks Hardware. Obviously the amount is the same. It's going to tell you it's check number 75 and it's coming in from the online match. So we just match it. So what if there's a bunch in here you don't want entered? You already have them entered in some other way. You entered them in manually. You don't want to bother matching them. Then you can come up here. And I've used this quite a few times, actually. You can come up here and I can tell to exclude these. Now, what that does is it takes it and puts it in this screen. Those are the ones that I just excluded. It won't sit over there waiting for me to post it to my account. It excludes them from that list, but I can always undo that. If I decide, oh, that wasn't the right thing to do, I can click undo, come back over, and it's sitting back here to add the transaction. The ones that come up under categorized are ones that have been categorized. There's Chen's Gas, there's Hicks Hardware. Those were the, and again, you can undo them. Once you do it, doesn't mean you can't undo it. Okay. So I know we all get a little click happy sometime, myself included. So just know that you can undo something that you've done.
Bonnie, I'm head out now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, you too.
Okay. So we talked about rules, matches, excluding transactions. If you are one that does not, and this is important, and I'm going to have Mandy chime in on some of this too. So let's say you write hand checks, you don't cut a lot of checks. Most of your stuff is done check card, and that's how we're all doing it now. So, but you have a couple checks that you've written. They're coming in from Bank Center, and they're coming in from the Bank Center. They're not in QuickBooks, and they need to be posted. And I'm looking for one. So bear with me here a minute. Do you see one in here, Mandy?
Mm.
No, I don't. So let's say a check comes in from your Bank Center. So I'm going to give you, do it that way. So let's say a check comes in from your banking. It's not entered in QuickBooks. So what you can do, and we'll pretend this Bessie, Books by Bessie up here is that. We're going to, so this vendor is set up in here. But usually when the checks come in, there is no vendor. If they come in from your banking center, what you're going to see is a check number, but that's going to be about it. So you need to go in here and set the vendor. And the reason for doing that is because you want to make sure that you are picking up for anybody that you've submitted a payment to via check. You want to make sure that if it's a vendor that needs to be issued a 1099, that without that vendor name in there, it's not going to include them or include that payment on their 1099. So when you're cutting checks, you want to make sure that you're selecting this vendor so that one, your 1099s are going out correctly. Now I'm going to let Mandy chime in as it relates to 1099s. As it relates to 1099s, and we just talked about it on
The debit card and credit card.
yes, yes, thank you. Please.
Okay, so technically, if you're paying a 1099 vendor, which refresher is anybody that you're paying $600 and more for services that is not an employee, those are your 1099 contractors. So if you're paying them by check, then you would want to include anything over $600 on their 1099. If you're paying them by a debit card or a credit card or the like, those are typically excluded because then it is the credit card processor's responsibility to follow their threshold rules, and those are reported on 1099-K. So that's where you want to identify if you're paying a vendor by check, it needs to have a check number, or if it's by a debit card or a credit card, you somehow indicate ACH, credit card, whatever, because QuickBooks is smart enough then to know to exclude those from the 1099 reporting rules.
So anytime you're issuing a check, you want to make sure that you're including the vendor name, even if it's coming in from your online banking.
Mhm.
So if it's that piggybacking on what Mandy said, if you pay it with a debit card, you know, your check card, which we all live off of, you don't have to worry about it because then that falls back on the bank or the processor to deal with it and to issue those 1099-Ks out. So you need to make sure that, and you know, actually I'll kind of back away on that because I still like to see vendors in, not just for checks. I like to see vendors in. It's helpful when you're working through the books. It's helpful from a bookkeeping. I worked in bookkeeping for a long time. And I know being able to go back and search and know who I bought something from and pull a receipt, it's just super helpful.
And any given time, like they're training IRS auditors to learn how to use QuickBooks. So if they're not seeing detail, they're going to come after you. Like they're going to want to know what it is. So they might be looking at something that's a couple years old and you're going to be scrambling for receipts to even know what vendor you even paid.
Yeah.
So it's always good habit to include a vendor.
I mean, even with your credit card receipts, and I can never emphasize this so much, this enough is when you have your credit card statements, and I'm a little old school, and I know there's new ways to do things, and you attach receipts in QuickBooks, but I am still old school where I like to have that receipt with all my slips attached. Like my credit card statement has all my receipts attached to it, so that if somebody asks me about a transaction, I can go back to that credit card statement and that receipt's going to be attached and I can say, yep, this is what I purchased it for. There's something warm and fuzzy about that, being able to do that. That's just, it's a good feeling. So yeah, I agree with you on that. I think having a vendor in anywhere, but a lot of people don't do that. And I mean, if you can, and I would encourage it.
And you might also have a picky accountant that sees a bunch of expenses without a vendor and they're going to ask you what it is.
Oh my, yeah. That would,
Especially if it gets to a certain dollar amount.
yeah, yeah. The more detail that you can put in, the better. I think it's a good idea. Goodness, we've covered a lot of stuff. Talk about 1099s real quick, since that was one of the final things that I did want to cover. QuickBooks Online actually has a really nice 1099 process. And if you go into your expenses and go to your vendors, you see your prepared 1099s up here. But first, where do you set your 1099 vendor up at? So you've got a vendor in Bob's Burger Joint. If we click on Bob's Burgers and we want to edit, when you go into this screen, this right down here is where you're going to put, if it's someone that should be getting a 1099, whether that's a miscellaneous or a 1099 NEC, you want to mark this box and you want to enter their EIN number, either their social or their EIN, whichever it is, and just click save. Okay. Then at the end of the year, when you're ready to go in, and if you're diligent and you stay on top of that all year long, it'll make your end of the year process so much easier. So you go back to prepare 1099s, and this screen, this interview screen, takes you through the process. It provides good information for you along the way. Hit continue to 1099s. And the first screen that will come up, and I think it's already been done, but it'll tell you these people are missing information, so you need to do that. And then it wants to say, okay, categorize your payments to contractors. What are the most common types? You've got non-employee comp, that goes in box 1 of your 1099 NEC. And what accounts, and this is what we call mapping your accounts. What accounts should I look at should QuickBooks look at for 1099, well, non-employee compensation? Well, you're talking about anybody who's going to provide a service. So definitely accountants, advertising, bookkeeper, building repairs. So you want to go down through here. Anybody does computer repairs? Commissions, Mandy?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, no.
Not unless it's other. That's a gray,
Yeah.
possibly.
Let's see, your attorney, legal and professional fees. So just as an idea, this is how you go through that. So those are ones that would come up, and it lists them off here to the side, that would come in under non-employee comp. Then we go to rents. What accounts do we want it to look at for rent? Well, one would be equipment rental, because that should be included. And the other would be, the ones that are already marked here were marked for non-employee compensation.
Yeah, rent's there somewhere.
Is it?
Yeah, rent or lease is already marked,
Okay,
but
that's kind of weird.
yeah,
It shouldn't have been.
it must be in, because it's not in either list. So maybe that's the default QuickBooks thing.
Yeah, it might be. And then when I click next, it comes up and tells me what I'm missing. Okay, so Bob's Burger Joint needs an address. The vendor or company name is missing. So there's 2 fields in under vendors. There's I think it's vendor ID and then vendor name. So you have to put it in both places. The address and then the tax ID is missing. Then once you put that in, you click next. And it'll come up and tell you all the information, 1099 contractors that meet the threshold. So it'll give you a list of who's going to be on the 1099 NEC. Of course, you have to pay to e-file or print and mail through QuickBooks, but they'll actually do it for you at a cost, but they will do it for you. Must have not had any 1099 miscellaneous. I don't think I hit yeah, these were for the 1099 miscellaneous.
Might not be anything posted.
Yeah, I didn't have anything marked here, so that's why it didn't give us anything for those. So that's how you go through that process. It's pretty nice. This one I find to be a little bit easier. I like the flow of this interview process to get your 1099s done in the online much better than I do. If you want to come back and finish it later, you can do that. And it's just easy enough to come back into it. Going back to what I said about putting the vendor name, if you come up here to edit, you have to have the name up here as well as here. You have to have it in both fields, so it doesn't give you an error message on your 1099s. That was a lot of information. Okay, I'm going to open it up for any questions. Anything anybody wants to talk about, has a question. I think I've pretty much covered everything we talked about. Correct, Mandy?
Yeah, we have.
Talked about a lot. So, okay, Kim Albaugh, go ahead.
Hi, yes, thank you. So back in the banking, I've been able to successfully link our bank accounts, but when I try to link the American Express, I keep getting an error. Now, it'll link me to the American Express site. We have multiple cards, so I'll select one at a time. It pulls me back. It looks like it's connecting, and then it wants to start the process all over again, and those transactions never pull over. And I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong.
So are they all on the same?
And I've tried both cards because we have two Amex cards, and I've tried checking them individually. I tried checking them at the same time, and it's the same process, and it'll show me that connecting where the errors are going back and forth, and it'll say return to QuickBooks, and then I'll say, oops, let's go back to the Amex site and connect again.
Oh my gosh. So do they give you a list of multiple American Express sites to go to?
They do, and I picked the business site because I did notice when I was researching how to do it that it said that the Amex was a little bit different, I guess, than other credit cards. And so I'm pretty sure I'm picking the right one. I mean, it says US and it says business account, but I have tried multiple times.
Now, do you have them set up as, you have them set up in your chart of accounts as two separate accounts, two separate
Yes.
credit cards, right?
Yes.
Good question. Did you, any ideas, Mandy? I know there was somebody else that has two. I have another client that has like 2 or 3 American Express cards and they had problems with them too. Shoot me an email. I'll see if I can
Okay.
find anything for you.
Okay, thank you. I'll send you a screenshot of the one of the error. And then I have a second question, if I may. I have multiple locations set up. So I know when I split a transaction, I can go to different expense accounts, but I'm only able to go to one location. And then I have to make a journal entry if I want to split those costs among locations. And I didn't know if there was a quicker way to be able to do that.
You got an interesting one. Oh my goodness. So it's not a class, it's a location.
Well, and I'm new to QuickBooks, so I have a lot of experience with Sage and Abila, but I just started on QuickBooks because I just came to this company about a month ago. So I've only been using it for about 2 or 3 weeks. So I just want to make sure it's the most efficient way for me to be doing it. I don't mind doing the journal entries, but if I could, allocate it to location while I'm doing the entry to record it to the different expense accounts, I'd like to be able to do that.
Now, when you say you set it up by location, are you referring to classes?
I use location. I know that there was classes, but I did use location. So when I go in and enter an expense, it'll say, location. I can pick from one of our 3. It doesn't say anything about class.
Mandy, where do you turn the locations on?
I think it's in accountant and settings.
Yes, that's where I went.
I know classes, you can.
We might not be able to see it because of the version, because it will depend upon the version that you have.
Okay.
But yes.
Oh, there are track locations under categories. It's your second option.
Yeah.
Okay.
So turn that on and go into one once.
Okay. So then when you go in to do an expense, well, let me see something up here first. Boy, it's slow.
Does it click on one of them? Yeah, see if it gives you.
It didn't give me a location.
Yeah, it's there.
It's
Oh,
there,
yeah.
but not down in the detail, like where you can, add
Oh.
multiple categories. I can't assign it, like it defaults this whole transaction to one location, and then I have to go reclass.
Class might be a better option.
Yeah, classes is going to allow you to do it by line.
Okay,
Does it allow
Okay.
you to do it if you do that as an expense versus a check?
Let me see.
There's an expense transaction down there. Yeah.
and then can you run a P&L by class then?
Yeah, you get
Okay.
a lot more detail.
Okay,
with
because that's what I'm running them by location, but there's even more detail if I use the class.
Yeah,
Okay,
you can get a report as a whole. You can get a report for just a particular class, for every class. Like,
okay,
you can go in and see which transactions are not classed, so you can.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
So I can show you the difference there. Dagnabbit.
that's probably a QuickBooks location that doesn't allow you, or a limitation that doesn't give you the option to choose more than one location.
Okay.
Yeah, I see how it does by business department division. Huh. Interesting. See how this is what I was looking for. See how for classes it says one to each row in a transaction. That's what I was looking for here, thinking maybe that would be the additional. You could do the same thing with location, but it won't allow you.
Okay,
It does it by department, division, location, property, store, or territory. That's what will allow you to track, but it's only one per, looks like per transaction. Whereas QuickBooks will do one to each row in a transaction.
okay,
And if I hit done, yeah, I think you'll like, yeah, because once you select turn it on classes,
uh-huh,
when you go over to reports, there should be a profit and loss by class.
okay,
I don't have any set up. A profit and loss by class will come up.
okay.
It's set up by location, but
Do I have to customize an existing one? Because I guess that's what I was thinking. I knew that profit and loss by location was available right there.
No, that P&L by class should be a default option then. And I don't know that when you hit turned on the class tracking, Bonnie, I
do I
don't
not turn it on?
know that you saved it before you clicked done.
Okay.
But P&L by classes should be default.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
do it all
You
the
can
time.
customize it from there.
Okay,
And in even on invoices, on expenses, on checks, on bills, by line item, you'll be,
okay.
that'll
All
save
right.
you a lot of time.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone else have any questions? We ran down to the wire today. Hopefully I answered everybody's questions. All right, folks. Well, thank you for attending. I appreciate your time and hope everybody walked away with some value out of this. Hopefully we'll be able to do something before we get to the end of the year again. Maybe getting ready for year end. That's always interesting. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day and thank you very much.